like and subscribe and hit the notifications button.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today with me I have Garrett, and this is Jace. So Jace is actually 3 months old now, and I know you guys are probably like, what the heck? But this video took us a while to make, but we're finally sitting down to do it, and I promise you I have tons of other videos of Jace. Today we're doing my labor and delivery story, and I thought I would include Garrett with me so he could give his perspective on his own experience during my labor. Jace was actually born on his due date, which was March 11th, and he was born at 10:47 a.m. and he was 7 pounds 11 ounces.
He wants to bounce.
And he was 20.5 inches long at his birth. So to start out the beginning of my labor, on March 10th, the day before he was born, like I just laid down with Garrett and we were watching Netflix, and then all of a sudden, like, my water just broke. Like, it was like a TV moment, like when you see those women and all of a sudden their water just breaks and they're like, my water breaks. Like, it was really, really like TV. And a lot of births actually don't happen like that. I looked it up, and apparently only like 10% of women actually have that, and it's actually called something. I believe it's called premature rupture of membranes, which basically just means that your water breaks before your labor actually starts.
If you don't start getting contractions within 24 hours, your baby's at risk of getting infection because the membrane is keeping it a sterile environment. So if it's exposed for that long and you don't have contractions, they're going to have to induce you.
And I remember just laying down and I felt like a gush of fluid come out of me.
So the best way I can describe it, when her water breaks and you're in the bed, it's like she pees the bed.
And I remember just being like, oh my God, like what just happened? And then I just looked at Garrett and I was like, I think my water broke. At that point, we were like really excited. We were like, oh, is this it? Like, is he gonna be born? This was like, I wanna say at like 7:30 at night. So then at that point, like I called the doctor and I explained to them that I felt like a gush, and they're like, no, come into the hospital. Like, let's check you out and make sure it was actually your water that broke. Garrett, how are you feeling?
I'm happy. I'm ready for the baby to come.
Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I just hope it's easy for you.
Yeah, me too. At this point, I had no contractions at all. This is something that I didn't realize, but I thought like once your water broke, like it just broke. But apparently, like, fluid just keeps leaking out of you continuously for like a long time. So by the time I got to the hospital, they had to like swab me to make sure it was like fluid. And then when I was laying down, like being examined, like more fluid started coming out, and they're like, oh yeah, your water is definitely broken.
My water broke and I'm here in the hospital waiting to be evaluated in the eval room. No contractions yet.
You just said you had one.
Just pressure. Well, I think it was one, I'm not sure. Nothing really painful, nothing like the Braxton Hicks I've been having for sure.
So at this point, they measured me and they told me I was still only 1 centimeter, which is what I had been like at the doctor's appointment previously the day before. And another interesting thing too is I had a doctor's appointment like 2 or 3 days before Jace was born, and they felt him and they told me that they thought he was going to be late because he felt nowhere near being ready, that I showed no signs of being ready to give birth. So they actually thought he was going to be late, and they kind of told me that they would want to put me on Pitocin, and I was like, oh, I really don't want to be induced. Like, is there anything else we can do? Like, please. Technically, my water had already broken. It was considered a medical emergency, so if I hadn't progressed by a certain time, they wanted to just induce me. We decided to like wait it out. They told me, at this point it was like 8:30. They told me they would give me like a few hours. I think they gave me until like 5 in the next morning to see if I had progressed at all. So at this point, they moved me into one of the labor and delivery rooms, and Garrett and I were just in there, and I was really trying everything I could to kind of, you know, have Jace come down to kind of dilate myself more.
The doctors just checked me and I'm still only 1 centimeter dilated, which is crazy because my water broke, which is pretty rare, I guess, without having contractions. And apparently I have been having them, I just haven't been feeling them. I don't know, they haven't been feeling as strong as the Braxton Hicks. So right now I'm just bouncing on my ball. It is about 9:36 right now, and they told me the longest I can go is 5 a.m. without being induced. So I'm bouncing on my ball. I'm gonna try to walk around so that hopefully he'll come on his own. But yeah.
So I was bouncing on a ball. I was walking around the labor and delivery suite. I was drinking lots of water. And at this point, I still wasn't feeling any contractions. They had hooked me up to the monitor and they showed me that I was having contractions, but I couldn't feel anything at this point. So at this point, I was like really excited. I was really happy. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be great. Like, it's going to go so smoothly. Like, I'm not feeling any pain, even though, like, I can see the contractions on there. So kind of all throughout the night, we kind of just were really excited and we were talking. And then, like, later on as my labor progressed, like, it started to get more and more challenging.
Yourself, Garrett.
What do you mean, am I proud?
Are you proud?
Yeah, I'm proud.
You're proud?
Yeah, I'm proud. I made a baby with you. You don't sound like that proud of me.
As I mentioned in one of my bump dates, I really wanted to have like a natural birth and have as little interventions as possible as long as there was no medical emergencies. And technically, the premature rupture of the membrane is considered a medical emergency, but they told me that nothing was completely, absolutely necessary until a certain time had elapsed. So I was trying really hard not to take any drugs or anything. I denied all of like the big IV drugs that kind of like really, really numb you. Like I really didn't want that feeling. Like really didn't want to feel like disconnected in any way. Like I still wanted to, be ready and everything like that. Like I really didn't want to be like knocked out. The contractions just started getting like extreme, like really, really extreme. Like I had no idea that I was gonna get that bad so early on.
It's currently 12:45. The contractions are getting closer together and starting to be more painful. Probably won't get checked until about 5 a.m. to see if I've dilated any further. So I'm gonna try and get some sleep. I don't know how I'm gonna be able to do that, but I'll try.
And they got so close together and so quick. Like I'm not exaggerating at all when I say that I had progressed at this point. Like it was probably about like 4 or 5 a.m. I was really, really holding out because I was trying to kind of just wait for the doctor to come back to see how far along I had progressed before I made a decision about if I wanted the epidural or not.
So there's 4 stages: early labor, active labor, transition, pushing. Transition is the most painful part. She was having contractions that would be described as transition contractions. On the monitor in the room, when there's a contraction, there's like a heart monitor. It rises the more intense it is. So the more intense the heartbeat, the higher it goes. The more intense the contraction, the higher it goes. And there's a line which is like the top. Her contractions were going above that line and they just weren't being recorded anymore. They were peaking too high and it just wasn't recorded because it was that painful.
I think the worst part for me was that there really was no break in between. Like I was contracting less than a minute apart. So by the time like I was coming down from one contraction, like the other one would begin. Like it was intense pain. So I really thought I was like close to the end. Like I was 8 centimeters or so, like 9 centimeters. But they came and checked me and they told me I was only 3 centimeters and I really wanted to cry. I was in so much pain and at that point, like I wanted the epidural. And they were even like unsure if they wanted to give me the epidural yet because I was only 3 centimeters. But the doctor said because my contractions were like so incredibly intense and like not your standard contractions for the phase of labor I was at, which was early labor, that I should get the epidural. And I still had to wait like a half an hour for the epidural, but I am so thankful I asked for it when I did, because as soon as I asked for the epidural, like within that 30 minutes, I just felt like it got like 10 times worse. I had cramps, not even in my stomach, but like everywhere in my body. I was like throwing up, shaking. Like, I remember when the anesthesiologist came in, I was shaking because I was in so much pain, and I was moaning at this point, visibly in a lot of pain, and like I was shaking, and I really had to try like the hardest I've ever tried in my life to just really be in control and like be still. After I got the epidural, within like 15 minutes, like it was such a relief. It was such a relief. And I mean, at the time, like I was pretty upset with myself for getting the epidural because I really wanted to have a natural labor, but in hindsight, I think that was a really good decision I made, because after I got the epidural, I ended up progressing from 3 centimeters to 8 centimeters within 3 hours, whereas I had only progressed 2 centimeters in like 10 hours.
I'm almost 8 centimeters now, and I haven't been feeling the contractions, but they started to get irregular after I got the epidural. But before the epidural, I was getting contractions every minute, sometimes less, and they were pretty regular and pretty painful. I was shaking and crying, but it has been I got the epidural about 2 hours ago, so I went from 3 to 7 centimeters, which is pretty big for 2 hours.
At this point, I really didn't get any sleep at all during my whole labor, because
After she got the epidural, she started to start shaking. Not right away, but over time went by, she started shaking.
it was like right before I was pushing. It was like when I was feeling Jace like right at my canal, and I was waiting. Like it was around this time in the birth.
And I was worried because I thought her body was like seizing, but the doctor said it was normal. Apparently it's something to do with epidural.
Yeah, so that was actually pretty scary. Like I had like this uncontrollable shaking, and my whole body was just like quivering, and like I couldn't get it to stop. Like they came in and put like a ton of blankets on me and everything, but you know, nothing really stopped it. Oh, and at this point too, I actually ended up throwing up because of all the shaking and everything.
So when Aaliyah was trying to get some sleep, and she was only getting sleep in 20-minute intervals, I was actually able to get a little bit more sleep because I didn't have a ball put between my legs and have to be rotated every 20 minutes. So when she woke me up, it was time to push, and she was like, "Garrett, it's time to push." And I'm a heavy sleeper, so I was just like, I'm just gonna sleep a little bit more. She was like, "No, it's time to push." And then I woke up and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like asking the doctor, like, "Oh, is the baby ready? Is he facing the right way?" And the doctor's like, "Yeah, it's coming." And then we started pushing, and I texted everyone in the family, "Jace is coming soon, she's pushing." And in less than 15 minutes, I was texting everyone, Jace was born. Everyone thought they would have time to get there, but he came extremely quick.
So by the time I got to the pushing, they actually backed off on my epidural with my permission, because they wanted me to feel everything and feel my contractions as strong as I could, so that way I would push with the contractions, because that's really important if you don't want to like tear or have to get an episiotomy, which is like when they cut you really don't want that. So they backed off a lot on the epidural, and there was like a very small dosage in me still. So by the time I was pushing Jace out, like I could feel the contractions, and I was pushing with the contractions, and they were really, really strong, but I actually felt that like my contractions before I got the epidural were way more painful. Even though I was still on the epidural, it was like such a small dosage that like it really didn't make that much of a difference, they told me. So yeah, at this point, like they kept making me wait actually before I wanted to push. Like I could feel Jace there and I felt ready, but they like kept making me wait until like I couldn't hold it anymore. And they basically said to me that like I could start pushing when I started to feel like I wanted to push, or I could really wait and have him come down as far as possible until I felt like I couldn't control myself anymore, and then push at that point. And they told me if I did the second, that Jace would have a greater chance of being out much faster. So that's what I went with, and it worked, because Jace was out in like 10-15 minutes from when I started pushing. Even the doctors were surprised by how fast he came out. And with each contraction, I tried to push like 3 or 4 times before taking a break. And I just remember pushing as hard as I could because I really just wanted him out because it was getting really painful at this point, and I really just wanted him to like come out. Like I really didn't want to be there for hours because I've heard so many women talk about how they've pushed for hours and hours, and I really did not want that. So I kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and I did feel like the ring of fire and everything. Like I felt all of that stuff, and it's really not fun. But before I knew it, Jace was out. Like
his head was at the canal, and then his head popped out, and the doctor cleaned his face, and the cord was wrapped around his neck, so she cut the cord and like made things good, like with the cord loosening it up around him, and then the next push, he shot out. The doctor didn't pull him out, the doctor caught him. So after that, the doctor put the baby, well, was he cleaned off by the doctor a little bit?
no, as soon as like he was fully born, like they put him on me for like a couple seconds, but then they took him away.
As soon as Jace was born, they put him on Aaliyah's chest so they could have skin-to-skin contact as soon as he was born. And it was like that for like about a minute or two, and then they took him because they wanted to clean him and do all the testing and make sure everything was okay. His APGAR score was pretty low because the cord was wrapped around his neck, so he wasn't...
His color was bad.
So he didn't have the color that he should have had in that time. So, but luckily he was gaining his color. Just the second test he had a good score.
Yeah, I remember when they told me it, like they didn't even really, they kind of just screamed like cord, like while I was pushing, they're like don't push. And it was really scary for me, and it was really hard not to push because these contractions are so strong that it almost like makes you push for you. Like you almost have no control. So it was really hard not to push, but obviously I didn't end up pushing, but that really freaked me out. And unfortunately, like I only got like probably like a minute or less with him on my chest before they took him away. I think they really wanted to like check him out and everything because the cord was wrapped around his neck. They wanted to make sure that he wasn't compromised or anything like that. And because of that too, unfortunately, Garrett didn't even get to cut Jace's umbilical cord. The nurses actually did it because I think they were just rushing with everything. They wanted to, do a lot of tests at once to make sure he was okay and determine if he needed to, get any more medical attention.
So yeah, after he was born, he was all tested and cleaned. They put him back on Aaliyah's chest, and then Aaliyah found out that she had a fever, so she couldn't feed right away.
Yeah.
So they had to, I don't know if they gave you like Motrin or something to reduce the fever, but we had to wait.
Didn't give me anything. They just made me wait before I fed him.
So we had to wait a little bit for her fever to go down to make sure that there was no infection or anything, which it wasn't really that long. It was probably like 20 minutes before your fever went down. And then she started breastfeeding, and I'm sure that was also painful the first time. That was...
Yeah.
So after Jace was born, and he was being tested and all that, she had to birth the placenta, which is the only way I could describe it as an alien sack of blood. It was weird looking, and it didn't look human. It had like all these different veins like surrounding it, and then it was like attached to like it had different like vines, bloody vines that looked like it was attached to the wall of the womb that were severed after the birth. So that was the bloodiest part. The bloodiest part is birthing the placenta.
I'm just gonna ask you a couple questions because I feel like since you're doing this with me, like women who are like about to give labor like want to know like the truth. You know what I mean? Like if we give them like truthful answers, so like just answer truthfully.
Okay.
So yeah, Garrett was with me throughout the whole process of my birth, and he actually watched Jace come out. And I know a lot of women like get concerned about that, and they don't want like their man like checking them out down there while they're giving birth. And I know like a lot of men might be kind of freaked out by that too. But Garrett was there for the whole time, and originally I really didn't want him to kind of like be down there, but he really wanted to like see it happen. So yeah, like why don't you explain to them like what the experience was like for you, like, and if you regret it or anything.
it's like a once in a lifetime experience if it hasn't happened to you before, and you don't know, if you have a vaginal birth the first time, you don't know if the rest of your births have to be C-sections. So if you have the opportunity to watch the birth of your child, you should take it. I mean, if you're queasy and you're gonna faint and you're gonna be a hazard, then you should probably not do it. But if you're able to, be around blood, then you should watch, because it's not like you're not gonna love your child if you don't watch him come out, but you're gonna appreciate your wife or the mother of your child way more for seeing the child come out of her womb, because it really is like pushing a watermelon out of a lemon hole. So you'll appreciate her and you'll love her more, and you'll be astounded by him, because it's a crazy thing for him to do or her to do if you're having a girl. So I don't regret it at all. I'm really happy that I did.
At any point were you like really freaking out, like you were really scared, you like weren't sure what was going on?
The scariest part for me was the seizures that I thought you were having. You weren't actually having seizures, but you were just shaking, and I thought that there was some bodily problem, that your body was like rejecting the epidural or something.
Okay guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please let me know in the comments. Feel free to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.
Goodbye.
Be sure to check out my videos that are going to be coming out soon this week. I have so many videos edited. I've just been waiting for a time to sit down and do this video. I've got so many videos. Okay, bye.
Oh.